It was a sunny afternoon in the heart of the city. People strolled along the sidewalks, children laughed on the playground, and cafes buzzed softly with conversation. Jason Statham, dressed casually in a leather jacket and sunglasses, was walking down the street, enjoying a quiet moment away from cameras and headlines. He wasn't expecting anything unusual, just a peaceful afternoon. But as he turned a corner, something caught his eye. Across the street, his ex-girlfriend was standing near a small crowd, looking distressed. One man nearby seemed to be arguing with her, his tone sharp and unfair. Jason's instincts immediately kicked in. He paused for a moment, observing. The man wasn't physically aggressive yet, but the tension in his voice and posture suggested he might escalate. Jason knew this wasn't just a casual disagreement. Someone needed to step in. Calmly, he approached the scene, hands relaxed at his sides, projecting authority without aggression. "Hey, everything okay here?" Jason asked, his voice steady but commanding. The man turned sharply, surprised to see him. "Mind your business." The man snapped. Jason didn't flinch. He simply nodded toward the woman. "She looks like she could use some help. Step back and calm down." People around started noticing the exchange. Some whispered, pointing subtly, while others pulled out their phones. There was a quiet ripple of curiosity through the crowd. Nobody expected an action star to be standing just a few feet away, calmly handling a tense situation. The man's anger didn't subside immediately. He stepped closer, trying to intimidate both Jason and his ex-girlfriend. Jason, however, remained poised. Every eye in the area was now on him. The air felt heavier, charged with anticipation. The crowd instinctively leaned back, waiting to see what would happen next. Jason's calm demeanor made it clear he wasn't looking for a fight, but he also wouldn't allow anyone to bully someone else in front of him. The scene was escalating, and everyone watching knew something dramatic was about to unfold. What Jason did next completely surprised the crowd, and it was all caught on camera. The moment hung in the air like a coiled spring. Jason stood a few feet away from his ex-girlfriend and the man who was confronting her. The man's tone grew louder, his gestures more aggressive, though he still hadn't touched anyone. Passers-by began slowing down, sensing the tension. A few pulled out their phones, subtly recording the scene, unsure of what was about to happen. Jason didn't move suddenly. He didn't raise his voice. Instead, he took a measured step forward, hands open in a calm, non-threatening way. "Let's keep this calm," he said. "There's no need for anyone to get upset. Why don't we just talk it out?" The man scoffed. "I don't need a lesson from you. This is my problem." Jason's eyes narrowed slightly, not in anger, but with the sharp focus of someone trained to control a situation. Every movement he made exuded quiet authority. The crowd had begun to gather in a loose semicircle, whispering to one another. One person muttered, "That looks like Jason Statham. Is it really him?" Still, Jason's attention never wavered from his ex-girlfriend and the man confronting her. He made sure she was safely behind him, just out of the immediate line of tension. "Step back. Take a breath," Jason instructed. "We can sort this out without anyone getting hurt." But the man wasn't ready to back down. He leaned forward, voice raised, trying to intimidate. Jason matched him with calm composure. Instead of escalating, he used subtle body language, blocking the man's movements without touching him. Every person watching could feel the tension increase. The anticipation was almost palpable. The crowd around them was now fully engaged. Some were filming, others whispered nervously. "Who is that guy? He looks serious. Wait, isn't that Jason Statham?" Jason's calm presence was already diffusing some of the fear in his ex-girlfriend. She straightened slightly, reassured by his control of the situation. But the crowd knew the conflict could escalate at any moment. Every eye was on the three of them, the man, Jason, and his ex-girlfriend. Even though no one was being hurt, the energy was charged. People leaned in closer, some mouthing words of encouragement to Jason. He didn't respond. His focus was entirely on ensuring the situation didn't spiral out of control. He subtly shifted his stance, blocking the man's path and guiding him back with words instead of physical force. Have you ever seen someone step in to protect someone else? And tell me, which country or city are you watching this story from right now? Drop it in the comments. Suddenly, a small group of bystanders gasped. The man's posture faltered for a moment. He hadn't expected Jason to handle things with such quiet strength. The whispers spread quickly. That's Jason Statham. He's handling this perfectly. Jason's strategy was simple but effective. Calm words, confident presence, and careful control of the space around him. The confrontation was tense, but no one was being hurt. And the man was starting to realize he couldn't bully his way through this situation. The stage was set for the next moment. Jason's calm, collected approach had the crowd on edge, waiting to see what he would do if the man tried to push too far. Every second felt like it could explode into action, and everyone watching knew this was only the beginning. The air around the small crowd crackled with tension. Jason Statham stood like a calm anchor in the middle of the storm. His ex-girlfriend was just behind him, trembling slightly but trying to appear composed. The man confronting her had stepped closer, voice sharp and domineering, clearly expecting to intimidate her. Or maybe even Jason, but what he didn't realize was that he was now facing someone trained to read a situation before acting, someone who could de-escalate without losing control, and someone who never let fear show. Jason kept his posture relaxed, but there was a subtle firmness in the way he stood, shoulders squared, feet planted steadily. Every movement was deliberate, designed to maintain control without provoking aggression. His eyes were locked on the man, unblinking but not threatening, conveying a silent warning. Any wrong move, and the balance of this confrontation would shift. "Look," Jason said calmly, his voice carrying across the small crowd. "No one here needs to get hurt. Step back, breathe, and we'll resolve this without anyone getting into trouble." The man sneered. "You think I'm scared of you?" he shouted. "This is my problem." Jason's ex-girlfriend stepped slightly forward, pleading. "Please, Jason, just let it go. Don't make it worse." Jason shook his head gently. "If I walk away, I'm letting him think this is okay. I can't do that. I need to protect her, and show that standing up doesn't have to mean fighting." Around them, the crowd grew tense. Some people whispered to each other, others filmed silently on their phones, capturing every moment. Children in the nearby park paused their games, sensing the seriousness in the air. The man confronting Jason clearly didn't expect the calm authority that radiated from him, and the crowd could feel it too. Jason's strategy was simple. He stayed composed, positioning himself to protect his ex-girlfriend while also leaving room for the man to back down. He subtly adjusted his stance, blocking paths without touching anyone, speaking in measured tones that left no room for misinterpretation. "You don't need to escalate this. Let's talk. Let's solve this like adults." The man hesitated for a moment, his bravado cracking slightly as he realized the crowd was watching him closely. Some whispered, "He's Jason Statham, the action star." Others nodded in silent admiration, realizing that the man facing them wasn't just anyone. Jason glanced at his ex-girlfriend again, reassuring her with a subtle nod. She relaxed a fraction, taking comfort in his presence, knowing she was safe without anyone being hurt. The tension didn't vanish. It hung in the air like an invisible wire, but it was now balanced by Jason's unwavering calm. Then the man made a small, aggressive step forward. The crowd gasped. Jason's eyes narrowed, not in anger, but in alert readiness. "Back up," he said firmly. "One more step, and this won't end the way you think." The man froze, sensing that Jason's calm was not weakness. The crowd shifted closer, murmuring encouragement. They could see how measured and precise Jason's control was, and it was starting to intimidate the antagonist without any physical force being used. If you were in Jason's place, would you walk away to stay safe, or stand your ground to protect someone else? Comment your answer below. Jason took another subtle step to the side, shielding his ex-girlfriend more clearly while still giving the man an easy path to retreat. "You don't have to do this," he said softly but firmly. "Step back and let's end this peacefully." The crowd collectively held their breath as the man's defiance wavered. He realized that this confrontation wasn't going to be about shouting or intimidation. It was about Jason's controlled presence, his confidence, and his ability to neutralize the situation without resorting to violence. Finally, after a tense pause, the man took a cautious step back. The tension in the air eased slightly, though the crowd was still buzzing with anticipation. Jason's ex-girlfriend exhaled, visibly relieved. But Jason didn't relax completely. He remained vigilant, knowing that sometimes the smallest misstep could reignite the tension. Around them, people whispered to each other about what they had just witnessed. Some quietly recorded videos, others shook their heads in admiration. Children resumed their play, sensing the immediate danger had passed, but adults in the crowd couldn't stop watching Jason, amazed at how he had handled the situation with intelligence, calmness, and courage. Jason glanced at the man one last time, his expression steady and unyielding. "Remember," he said, his voice calm but unmistakably firm, "respect goes both ways. You don't need to threaten anyone to prove yourself." The man muttered something under his breath, then finally turned and walked away. The crowd exhaled collectively, a mixture of relief and awe spreading among them. Jason's ex-girlfriend stepped closer, smiling weakly, grateful but impressed. It was a small victory, but a powerful one, showing that courage, calmness, and control could triumph over aggression without a single punch being thrown. The stage was now set for the next chapter, where the tension might rise again. But Jason's mastery of the situation had already left an impression on everyone watching. The city street had quieted slightly after the confrontation, but the tension was far from gone. Jason Statham stood still, eyes scanning the man who had tried to intimidate his ex-girlfriend. His posture remained calm yet alert, projecting authority without aggression. Behind him, his ex-girlfriend took a cautious step closer, reassured by his presence. But it wasn't just the main characters who felt the electricity in the air. The bystanders, who had been quietly observing, were beginning to sense something extraordinary. One of the teenagers filming on a smartphone nudged his friend, whispering, "Dude, isn't that Jason Statham?" The words traveled through the crowd like wildfire. "Wait, is that really him? No way, that's Jason Statham." People who had been hesitant to get too close now stepped forward slightly, craning their necks to catch a better view. Phones appeared from pockets and purses, all pointing toward the calm figure, who had just handled a tense confrontation with such precision. Jason, however, remained focused entirely on the situation. He didn't acknowledge the whispers or the pointing fingers. Fame had nothing to do with what he was doing. His only goal was to protect his ex-girlfriend and ensure the situation ended peacefully. He knew that if the man confronting them realized who he was dealing with too soon, it could escalate unpredictably. And Jason didn't want that. The man, unaware of the growing recognition around him, tried once more to assert his dominance. "You think just because people are staring you can scare me?" he shouted, attempting to regain control. Jason's response was a calm, measured step forward. His voice was low, steady, and filled with authority. "You don't need to prove anything. Step back and let this end quietly." The crowd, now fully aware of Jason's identity, began murmuring excitedly, "He's Jason Statham. Wow, the action star himself." Some children who had been watching from the nearby playground whispered to their parents, eyes wide. The adults nodded, equally impressed. Cameras and phones were recording every moment. The situation was transforming from a simple street confrontation into a public spectacle, yet still completely under control thanks to Jason's composed presence. Even as the crowd buzzed, Jason remained a stabilizing force. He subtly positioned himself between his ex-girlfriend and the man, maintaining a safe buffer without ever raising a hand. His calm, unwavering demeanor contrasted sharply with the man's nervous energy. It was clear who held the real power. Not through force, but through confidence, composure, and intelligence. The whispers among the crowd grew louder. People began gesturing toward Jason and whispering to each other about how perfectly he was handling the confrontation. Some commented quietly to their friends, "He's not even shouting. Look how calm he is. That's why he's a star." The man finally realized that he was surrounded by more than just observers. He was surrounded by a silent jury of witnesses, all admiring Jason's handling of the situation. The pressure was almost tangible. Every step, every word, every gesture from Jason was carefully calculated to prevent escalation, while asserting quiet authority. Jason's ex-girlfriend, now visibly calmer, whispered softly to him, "I can't believe how composed you are. This is incredible." Jason offered a reassuring nod. "It's not about showing off. It's about making sure everyone stays safe, and this ends without trouble." Suddenly, the man's bravado began to crumble. He glanced at the growing crowd, realized how many people were watching, and began to step back. Jason's quiet control had shifted the energy completely. No one needed to throw a punch, just his presence and measured actions had changed the course of the confrontation. The crowd began to cheer quietly, as if acknowledging that the tension was finally easing. Phones clicked, videos recorded, and whispers of admiration spread. Jason remained vigilant, his eyes on the man, ready to react if necessary. But it was clear now, the confrontation was tilting toward resolution. The man still didn't realize who he was dealing with. But the moment the truth hit him, "What do you think Jason will do next?" Jason's calm control, his ability to assess and respond without violence, and his unwavering focus on protecting those around him had turned a tense street confrontation into a lesson in courage, composure, and quiet heroism. The crowd, now fully aware of the action star in their midst, waited with bated breath. They knew the next move could be dramatic. But whatever happened, Jason held the situation firmly in his hands. The tension on the city street had reached its maximum. Jason Statham stood firmly, a calm figure amidst a gathering crowd, while the man who had confronted his ex-girlfriend was clearly starting to lose confidence. Every step, every gesture Jason made conveyed quiet authority. No one doubted that he was in complete control of the situation. The man attempted one last show of bravado, raising his voice to assert dominance. "You think you can just stand there and tell me what to do?" he shouted. "I don't care who's watching." Jason didn't flinch. Instead, he took a subtle step forward, closing the small distance without making the move threatening. His posture was relaxed, his expression neutral, but the crowd could feel the weight of his presence. There was no anger in his voice, only calm authority. "Look," Jason said slowly, deliberately, "this isn't about me. It's about how we treat others. You don't need to intimidate anyone to prove yourself." The crowd around them fell silent, hanging on his words. Even the children who had been watching nearby stopped playing, sensing the significance of the moment. Jason's voice carried over the street, firm yet controlled. His calmness had a magnetic effect, drawing attention and respect, and the man could feel it. For a moment, the antagonist tried to retort, but his words faltered. The crowd's attention was now fully on him, not Jason. People began whispering, murmuring, pointing subtly, "Look at him. Jason Statham is handling this perfectly." Some held up their phones to capture the moment, but all were careful to maintain a safe distance. Jason subtly shifted his stance, positioning himself between his ex-girlfriend and the man, blocking any potential aggressive move without touching anyone. He didn't need to use force. His calm confidence alone neutralized the tension. Every movement was precise, intentional, designed to maintain control while ensuring everyone's safety. The man's face went pale as he realized he was outmatched, not by violence, but by sheer composure and intelligence. He took a step back, muttering under his breath, unsure of what to do next. He was surrounded by witnesses who admired Jason's skill, and he could feel the power of the crowd's gaze weighing on him. Jason's ex-girlfriend took a careful breath, relief evident in her eyes. She whispered, "I can't believe how you're handling this, so calm, so controlled." Jason offered a reassuring smile. "It's not about winning or losing," he said softly. "It's about making sure no one gets hurt, and that respect is maintained." The man tried one more quick move forward, a gesture, a shove perhaps. But Jason was ready. With a few deft steps, he subtly shifted to block the path, guiding the man safely back without striking him. The crowd gasped quietly, impressed by the effortless precision. There was no harm, no violence, only controlled action that left the man disoriented and embarrassed. At that moment, the crowd began to cheer quietly, acknowledging Jason's mastery of the situation. Phones clicked, cameras zoomed, and people whispered admiration. "He didn't even hit him. That's incredible." Jason stepped slightly closer to his ex-girlfriend, keeping his eyes on the man. But now there was a sense of resolution. He had demonstrated control, courage, and authority without escalating the situation. The antagonist, fully aware that he had been outmaneuvered, finally stopped resisting. Jason's voice carried one last, firm reminder: you don't need to threaten anyone to feel powerful. Respect goes both ways. Remember that. The man muttered something under his breath and finally turned away, leaving the scene. Relief rippled through the crowd. Bystanders nodded, whispered, and recorded the final moments of a confrontation that had been intense, yet completely safe and under control. The crowd's admiration for Jason was palpable. People marveled at his ability to neutralize a tense situation with intelligence and composure rather than force. Even the children nearby looked on in awe, inspired by the calm, decisive actions they had witnessed. Jason finally relaxed slightly, still alert, but assured that the immediate danger had passed. His ex-girlfriend stepped forward, grateful and visibly relieved. "Thank you," she whispered. Jason nodded, calm and composed. "It's not about me," he said quietly. "It's about standing up for others and handling conflict responsibly. That's the real strength." The street, once tense with uncertainty, now buzzed with whispers of admiration. Phones were still recording, the crowd slowly dispersing, but the impression of Jason's calm authority remained, a lesson in courage, respect, and intelligence without a single act of harmful violence. The man finally walked away, but what happened next would surprise everyone on the street. The street was buzzing with whispers, phones were still recording, and the crowd had gathered closer, but the tension had shifted. The man who had tried to intimidate Jason Statham's ex-girlfriend had stepped back, visibly unsure of how to continue. Meanwhile, Jason remained calm, standing protectively but non-threateningly in front of his ex-girlfriend. His focus never wavered, even as the crowd started murmuring about who they were watching. A young bystander, who had been filming the scene from a corner of the street, suddenly gasped, "Wait, that's Jason Statham, the action star." The words spread quickly, like sparks in dry grass. Whispers erupted into murmurs, then into small exclamations of awe. "No way, it's Jason Statham. Wow, that's the guy from all the movies." People stepped closer, holding up their phones, trying to capture a better angle. The small crowd that had gathered for a tense street confrontation had transformed into an excited audience. Even the man who had caused the confrontation froze. His expression shifted from defiance to shock as the reality of who he had been challenging finally hit him. He had expected to intimidate anyone, but he hadn't realized he was dealing with a global action star known for his composure, agility, and intelligence. Jason's calmness never wavered. Fame didn't change his approach. He had been acting with care and responsibility from the very beginning. He didn't need recognition to ensure that his ex-girlfriend was safe and the situation remained under control. But now the crowd's awareness added another layer to the tension. The man was embarrassed, and everyone watching knew it. Jason subtly shifted his stance, creating a clear path for the man to step away safely. "You don't need to prove anything," Jason said, his voice calm but commanding. "Step back and let's end this peacefully. That's the smart choice." The man hesitated, clearly unsure. Phones continued to record, capturing Jason's calm authority in real time. Bystanders nodded, some even cheering softly, impressed by the way he had handled the confrontation without violence. Jason's ex-girlfriend, now fully aware of the growing attention, let out a relieved breath. She whispered, "I can't believe you handled all of that so calmly, and everyone's watching." Jason smiled slightly. "It's not about showing off," he said. "It's about protecting others and handling conflict responsibly. That's the real strength." The man finally stepped back fully, muttering something under his breath. The crowd erupted into soft applause, admiration clear, in every whisper and every glance. Jason had turned a potentially volatile confrontation into a lesson in composure, courage, and intelligence. What would you do if you saw someone being threatened in public? Would you step in, record it, or walk away? Comment below. We want to hear your answer. The crowd's energy shifted from suspense to admiration. People who had only come to watch a minor street altercation were now witnessing something remarkable. A real-life example of bravery, calmness, and ethical courage. Children whispered to their parents. Adults nodded in approval, and cameras captured every angle. Jason's subtle actions, positioning, timing, and verbal commands had neutralized the situation entirely without a single act of aggression. Even the man who had caused the confrontation seemed to understand that he had been outmatched, not physically but morally and intellectually. He shuffled away, embarrassed, realizing that intimidation and anger would never overpower calm authority and responsibility. Jason remained with his ex-girlfriend for a few moments, ensuring she was fully safe and calm. Then, with a reassuring nod to the crowd, he allowed the attention to settle around him. People continued filming, whispering, and praising him. But Jason's focus was always on safety and respect, never on fame or recognition. The street, once filled with tension and uncertainty, now hummed with admiration and respect. The crowd slowly dispersed, but the lesson of what had happened lingered. Courage doesn't always mean confrontation. True strength is knowing how to stand firm. Jason finally relaxed slightly, still alert, but assured that the immediate danger had passed. His ex-girlfriend stepped forward, grateful and visibly relieved. "Thank you," she whispered. Jason nodded, calm and composed. "It's not about me," he said quietly. "It's about standing up for others and handling conflict responsibly. That's the real strength." The street, once tense with uncertainty, now buzzed with whispers of admiration. Phones were still recording, the crowd slowly dispersing. But the impression of Jason's calm authority remained, a lesson in courage, respect, and intelligence without a single act of harmful violence. The man finally walked away, but what happened next would surprise everyone on the street. The street was buzzing with whispers. Phones were still recording, and the crowd had gathered closer, but the tension had shifted. The man who had tried to intimidate Jason Statham's ex-girlfriend had stepped back, visibly unsure of how to continue. Meanwhile, Jason remained calm, standing protectively but non-threateningly in front of his ex-girlfriend. His focus never wavered, even as the crowd started murmuring about who they were watching. A young bystander, who had been filming the scene from a corner of the street, suddenly gasped, "Wait, that's Jason Statham, the action star." The words spread quickly, like sparks in dry grass. Whispers erupted into murmurs, then into small exclamations of awe. "No way, it's Jason Statham. Wow, that's the guy from all the movies." People stepped closer, holding up their phones, trying to capture a better angle. The small crowd that had gathered for a tense street confrontation had transformed into an excited audience. Even the man who had caused the confrontation froze. His expression shifted from defiance to shock as the reality of who he had been challenging finally hit him. He had expected to intimidate anyone, but he hadn't realized he was dealing with a global action star known for his composure, agility, and intelligence. Jason's calmness never wavered. Fame didn't change his approach. He had been acting with care and responsibility from the very beginning. He didn't need recognition to ensure that his ex-girlfriend was safe and the situation remained under control. But now the crowd's awareness added another layer to the tension. The man was embarrassed, and everyone watching knew it. Jason subtly shifted his stance, creating a clear path for the man to step away safely. "You don't need to prove anything," Jason said, his voice calm but commanding. "Step back and let's end this peacefully. That's the smart choice." The man hesitated, clearly unsure. Phones continued to record, capturing Jason's calm authority in real time. Bystanders nodded, some even cheering softly, impressed by the way he had handled the confrontation without violence. Jason's ex-girlfriend, now fully aware of the growing attention, let out a relieved breath. She whispered, "I can't believe you handled all of that so calmly, and everyone's watching." Jason smiled slightly. "It's not about showing off," he said. "It's about protecting others and handling conflict responsibly. That's the real strength." The man finally stepped back fully, muttering something under his breath. The crowd erupted into soft applause, admiration clear, in every whisper and every glance. Jason had turned a potentially volatile confrontation into a lesson in composure, courage, and intelligence. What would you do if you saw someone being threatened in public? Would you step in, record it, or walk away? Comment below. We want to hear your answer. The crowd's energy shifted from suspense to admiration. People who had only come to watch a minor street altercation were now witnessing something remarkable. A real-life example of bravery, calmness, and ethical courage. Children whispered to their parents. Adults nodded in approval, and cameras captured every angle. Jason's subtle actions, positioning, timing, and verbal commands had neutralized the situation entirely without a single act of aggression. Even the man who had caused the confrontation seemed to understand that he had been outmatched, not physically but morally and intellectually. He shuffled away, embarrassed, realizing that intimidation and anger would never overpower calm authority and responsibility. Jason remained with his ex-girlfriend for a few moments, ensuring she was fully safe and calm. Then, with a reassuring nod to the crowd, he allowed the attention to settle around him. People continued filming, whispering, and praising him, but Jason's focus was always on safety and respect, never on fame or recognition. The street, once filled with tension and uncertainty, now hummed with admiration and respect. The crowd slowly dispersed, but the lesson of what had happened lingered. Courage doesn't always mean confrontation. True strength is knowing how to stand firm. Jason's calm, measured handling of the situation had left a lasting impression. People would be talking about it, sharing videos online, and learning from the example he set. Even in a chaotic moment, he had demonstrated that heroism doesn't require violence. Only integrity, skill, and self-control. The stage was now ready for the final chapter, where the aftermath would unfold online. The story would go viral, and the lesson of bravery and responsibility would inspire millions worldwide. The city street had slowly returned to its usual rhythm. Cars drove by, cafes resumed their quiet chatter, and pedestrians continued with their daily routines. Yet the memory of the confrontation lingered in the minds of everyone who had witnessed it. Phones were still buzzing with notifications. Videos of Jason Statham calmly and skillfully handling the tense situation had already begun circulating online. Within hours, clips from the scene went viral. People from all over the world were sharing the story, amazed at how the actor had managed to protect someone without raising a hand aggressively. Headlines appeared online. Jason Statham handles street confrontation with calm and courage. Action star teaches powerful lesson in real-life bravery. Heroism doesn't need violence. Jason Statham shows the way. Social media platforms buzzed with comments. Viewers expressed awe at his composure, praising not only his courage but also his intelligence in handling the situation. Many noted how he had protected someone vulnerable while remaining completely calm and fair. People from different countries shared their admiration, showing that acts of responsibility and courage could inspire universally. The story didn't focus on conflict or violence. It focused on principles. Jason had remained calm, precise, and respectful throughout the encounter, turning what could have been a dangerous situation into a teaching moment for everyone who watched. His approach highlighted a simple but powerful truth. Strength isn't just about physical ability, it's about courage, empathy, and knowing how to act responsibly in the face of tension. Even the man who had confronted Jason's ex-girlfriend faced social consequences, though not through harm. The viral videos and public attention showed him that intimidation and aggression were never effective when faced with integrity and composure. The lesson was clear: respect and ethical action hold far more power than anger or threats. Jason's ex-girlfriend publicly thanked him in interviews and social media posts, emphasizing how safe and protected she felt because of his calm intervention. She explained that the moment had not only prevented a potential escalation but had also shown the crowd, and viewers around the world, what it meant to be brave without being reckless. The story inspired millions. Children shared it in schools as an example of responsible courage. Adults discussed it at work as a demonstration of calm leadership under pressure. Families noted the lesson in empathy and protecting others without causing harm. The message was universal. Anyone could act heroically if they remained composed, thoughtful, and committed to doing what was right. Jason, true to his character, didn't seek fame from the incident. He didn't boast or make it about himself. His statements to the press and social media focused on respect and responsibility. Courage is not about fighting, he said. It's about standing up for what's right, protecting those who need it, and staying calm in moments of tension. That's how real strength is shown. The online response was overwhelming. Millions of views, shares, and comments flooded in from every corner of the globe. People praised the calm and respectful way he had handled a difficult situation, highlighting that heroism can exist without violence, and that standing up for others is always worth it. As the story spread, it sparked discussions about everyday courage. Teachers, parents, and community leaders used the video to show children that being brave doesn't mean being aggressive. It means acting with integrity and empathy, thinking before reacting, and protecting others responsibly. Jason had become not just an action star on the screen, but a role model for real-life heroism. This isn't just a story about an actor. It's a story about all of us. Every day, we have moments where we can stand up for what's right, to protect someone, to speak out against unfairness, to stay calm under pressure. Real strength comes from courage, empathy, and respect, not from intimidation or aggression. Be brave, be responsible, and remember, the way you act can inspire everyone around you. Jason Statham walked away that day, not as a celebrity, but as a hero of everyday life, showing the world that calm courage, respect, and intelligence are far more powerful than fear, anger, or threats. The street had returned to normal, but the lesson lingered. Anyone, anywhere, could be a hero by choosing integrity, empathy, and strength over conflict. If you believe in standing up for others responsibly and being brave without hurting anyone, type brave in the comments below, and subscribe for more inspiring, action-packed stories like this one. The purpose of this story is to highlight courage, empathy, and responsible behavior in difficult situations. It does not promote violence or harmful actions.